Right, good evening, everybody. Nice to see a good turnout. At least you've really quite filled this room, haven't you? Excellent. Welcome everybody to the Edith Morley building. If you haven't been here before, this is our second meeting here in this season. We were here for the Christmas social, and that worked very well because we had people sitting round tables in teams for Neil's quiz and so on. But this is the first time I said we've used it for otherwise rather than for a social evening. So we'd love to know what you think of it. We've just kind of made the layout up as we went along this evening. So if you've got any comments on good, bad, or indifferent, please let us know. We'll be here again for the next meeting in 2 weeks' time. These two because the university has exams on in our normal room, so we couldn't have it, not surprisingly. And to those of you on Zoom or anybody here who was on Zoom last time, apologies for the sound problems we had last time. Jono, wonderful loud voice. We had absolutely no problems of hearing him in the room, but sadly, despite considerable persuasion, he would stand right at the back, as far away from the mic as he could, really. And we gathered that when he was doing that, it was difficult to hear on Zoom. We are trying out a new conference speaker this evening. So those of you on Zoom, we'd love some feedback. Please let us know. Obviously, as usual, if you get any problems, but we'd also like to know if it works well. I've only borrowed the conference microphone at the moment. I don't want to invest in one unless it's we're going to be sure it works. We have 2 new members since the last meeting. So I'd like to welcome Claire Hines and Atif Hashmi to the club. Are either here tonight? Hello, Claire. Nice to meet you. Please do come and say hello at the break. And I hope you have a long and happy association with the club. Good to see you. Right, as usual, I'm just going to quickly go through future meetings for ourselves and a few of the other organisations. Our next, as I said, is in here again 2 weeks' time on the 5th of Feb. The welcome return of Lee Barber, who last spoke to us about the Nest record scheme and is coming this time to talk about bird ringing. So anybody it's something I've thought of getting into years ago, but realised I just didn't have the time. But it's something I'd love to have been involved with. Our next outdoor meeting is the joint one with NDOC on Monday, the 3rd of Feb, and that's Bob's Monday outings to Warsash and Bunny Meadows. For the RSPB Reading group, the next indoor meeting is on the 11th of Feb, Tuesday. Exciting wildlife around the world, which is broad but sounds tempting, from Tom Way, who's apparently a stunning photographer. And their next outdoor meeting is on the 16th of Feb, Sunday, when they're going to Rainham Marshes by minibus. By the way, if anybody wants any more information about any of the meetings I'm mentioning, I've got more info here. Come and see me at the break, or have a look on their websites. And the RSPB Wokingham and Bracknell group, their next indoor meeting is on Thursday, the 13th of Feb, Wildlife in the Chilterns with John Mason. And their next outdoor is on Saturday, the 15th of February, when they're going to College Lake. And last but by no means least, NDOC, their next indoor meeting is February the 4th, which is a Tuesday, talking about red kites in the introduction by the man who initiated the project when reintroducing them. And I've just realised I've actually have no idea how to pronounce his name because it's Mike
Pinkowski.
Thank you so much, Neil. For those of you at home, it's Pinkowski. I wrote it down without thinking. And their next outdoor meeting is on Saturday, the 25th of January to East Garson. And then they've got another one on the 1st of Feb, Saturday again, to Bucklebury Common, when they're doing a survey, setting the baseline for there's been a lot of work there recently, or there's a lot of ongoing work, should I say, Debbie, and they are surveying it to see where they are at the moment. And the other reminder about future events, the Big Garden Bird Watch, Friday, Saturday and Sunday coming, RSPB. I didn't realise till today that you have to register if you want to get any of the info, like guides sent to you, because apparently you're not able to log onto your account as you used to do. But I hope you enjoy doing that at the weekend. Has anybody else got any officers' announcements? Anybody want to say anything? Jane at the back, photo?
Can you remind people about the photographic competition?
Certainly. The photographic competition entries close on the 21st of February, which I believe is we've had 2 entries so far. Way to go, eh? So that's Friday the 21st, is that right? Yeah. So I know if I remember correctly, it'll be midnight. So maximum of 4? 3, sorry, this time 3 per person. So please do, we want to maximise the number of people who enter, so please do get your entries in. Right, one last thing before we get on to the main topic of the evening. Any good recent sightings anybody been getting?
I've had a male black cat glued to my feeder for the last 2 weeks. You just won't leave it alone.
Wonderful. Susan had a male black cat. I've just got the impression now of a black cat literally glued to a feeder.
You must believe it. First of all was a female. 2 weeks later, he appeared and he hasn't left it.
Right, so it'll be a fat black cat by now if he's been on there for 2 weeks. Yeah. All right, and another one down the back, and that was what I was going to mention for my garden as well, but I've only had one for 1 day, so I'm jealous now. Any other recent sightings? Oh yes, we were out at on Peter Driver's walk on Saturday, and at Padworth, and there was a great white egret, which is getting almost commonplace these days, isn't it, around here? But also a marsh harrier, which some of us got a brief glimpse of, and hopefully he saw it well enough to get the record accepted. Any other sightings around?
If somebody wants a nice, reliable and confiding barn owl, there's been one this winter on the meadows by the Thames north of Cleve Lock at Streatley. It's a bit of a walk to get there. You have to go either from Streatley Village and walk up the river, or to Molesford and walk down. That's quicker to do it from Molesford and walk down. And if you are going from Streatley, bear in mind that the footpath has been flooded and is likely to be flooded again after the rain that's coming. But it's been very reliable indeed. It's also sometimes been even hunting in the morning.
Okay.
There's been a few photographers there getting some nice pictures of it.
Well, I'm going to try and summarise that for everybody on Zoom.
Oh, sorry, of course.
No, that's all right. No, a nice, reliable barn owl on the Thames. Did you say north of which lock?
Cleve Lock.
Cleve Lock. So not far from Streatley. Mm-hmm. But it was a bit of a walk. So which way would you recommend going to it?
Probably the quickest way to get there is to walk down from Molesford rather than up from Streatley.
Okay, probably the quickest way to get there for you on Zoom is down from Molesford rather than up from Streatley, but that must be possible even if it's been flooded at times. That's very tempting. Excellent. Any other sightings, Rob?
There's been a pintail at Moor Green Lakes, and a couple of reports of lesser spotted woodpecker and 2 barn owls.
All at Moor Green? It's going to be a bit of one upmanship tonight, isn't it? So that all at Moor Green Lakes.
Best in the afternoon.
Okay, so Moor Green Lakes, 1 pintail, sights of 2 lesser spotted woodpeckers.
No, 2 sightings of 1 lesser.
Sorry, I was being hopeful. 2 sightings of 1 lesser spotted woodpecker, but also 2 barn owls, best in the afternoon. Okay. That's if you aren't all rushing down there to see if you can find the woodpecker, I'd be amazed. Anything else before we move on? No, right. I'm just going to set up the slides, and then I will introduce you to our speaker for the evening. Bear with me a minute while we get the slides done.
Okay. It has a whole scheme sorted out. The sets get in beforehand.
That looks good.
The steps they went through to obtain clients, from Sweden, Spain, including.
Right. Good evening again. And this evening we have one of our own, if you like. How long have you been in the? The note said you've been in the club since the late 70s. Is that right? Oh, I apologise. Oh, I should really ask, shouldn't I? I should have checked with you. It started to work automatically. Is that intentional?
Possibly.
Do you want me to pause it?
Go back.
Go back.
I suppose it's because of the light, but that's.
There you are. It honestly wasn't me. Right. So long-term member of the club, and I believe an ex-chairman. So one of my predecessors. You did your bit. You did your stint, right? And a long-term birder and traveller who's very partial to Southeast Asia, I believe, and South America, and especially Ecuador. That's a reasonable summary. And he's been there, I believe, 5 times.
Yep.
And Nancy's with him tonight, who's going to be doing the light switches. It's nice having an assistant. So let me pass you over to David for an excellent evening of Ecuadorian bird life. It will be.
My opening line was going to be on Saturday, we had our golden wedding anniversary. And then I knew we were doing this talk tonight, and I know I'm a long-term member. And it's 48 years I've been a member, because we arrived in Reading 2 years after we got married. So it worked out that way.
Yeah.
So this is a trip that we took, the first big trip after COVID, and our attitude to birding had changed then, because previous to the lockdown, we travelled looking for new birds, and we were butchers and tickers and listers, or whatever you want to call it. And we were listing with a camera.
Sorry, David, move over a bit. They might be able to. The mic should pick you up better.
And during lockdown, we got more and more interested in photography, not just in bird photography, but in landscapes and people and alternative things. And the talk tonight is pictures that we took in I think a 3-week trip around southern Ecuador. How many people here have been to Ecuador? Quite a few. So you'll know roughly the geography of the place. Presumably you all flew into Quito and up to Mindo and down to the lodges and things. Did anybody get down to the very south? Good, right. How do I start it? Just click.
Should be able to just click on the.
Okay,
arrows.
no, not start the show or anything.
There we are.
Okay, just a quick reminder where Ecuador sits. Top left-hand corner of South America. Quito roughly in the middle. Galapagos stuck out in the ocean, about 2 hours flying, 2.5 hours flying. Surrounded by Colombia in the north and Peru in the south. And going down to South Ecuador, there was some link up between the North Peru birds and some of them that make it across into southern Ecuador. This is the way to get to Ecuador. I don't know how you other guys did it, but we normally go either Iberia or KLM, which seems to be where the route that most birders take. There's no direct London-Quito flight. And the Iberia flight, leave London at 6 in the morning, arrive into Madrid about 7:30, leave for Quito at 12 in the big transatlantic jets of Iberia. That's just about an hour out of Quito in the bottom right-hand corner. And we got picked up.
It's not playing. No.
Got picked up at Quito Airport by the son of the guy who organized the trip for us. We were going to overnight here, airport hotel, standard hotel that you can find anywhere in the world. And we were told that we had to be ready at 4:30 in the lobby to meet our guide to get checked in at 5 o'clock for a 6 o'clock flight down to Cuenca, which is the 3rd biggest town in Ecuador. Quito is the main town, secondly, Guayaquil, and thirdly, Cuenca.
You got your pointer?
It's in my bag, I'll just...
Actually, if you use the pointer, nobody on Zoom can see where you're pointing.
Okay,
so
fine.
if you can cope without it, that'd be great.
Yeah. So we got woken at 4 o'clock in the morning, went down to the lobby. Our guide was waiting for us in his brother's car with his brother. He took us to the airport and we checked in for the flight down to Cuenca, arriving here about 7 o'clock in the morning. There's no internal airline in Quito. There's no Ecuadorian internal airline. So the flights are run by Avianca, which is the Colombian airline, which has got a really good reputation these days. This is us pulling out the Cuenca. When we arrived, our vehicle and our driver were already there. So we just piled the gear into the car and headed out towards the hills that you can see in the distance there. They knew where to stop for a second breakfast. And there was this lovely little bread shop that had croissants and rolls and cheese rolls and a fruit drink that's there. The most interesting bit is the biscuits at the top, which apparently are served at funerals. And if you look at them, they're like humans wrapped up in their whatever, but they all look happy. They've all got smiles on their face. So from there, we headed off into our first stop, which is a national park called El Cajas. And where we're going for the next 4 days is working our way up to 4,000 meters on a road that twists up a valley. So this is down at the bottom of the valley, getting into a lake. It's called Laguna Yaquiacha or something. If you go into a national park in Ecuador, you've got to take a local ranger with you. And this guy was Jose. And he was with us for the 3 days we were in here. Spoke very good English. He was basically a botanist. That was his main interest. But he'd taken birding groups around, so he knew the routes and knew most of the birds that were there. He had a little bit of a backstory in as much as when he was a bit younger, he went down into the Amazon and went to a retreat with a shaman who was feeding him all sort of funny magic mushrooms and whatever. And he's convinced he's part jaguar. And we had some funny conversations about it. The plan here is you walk up the right-hand side of the lake, round the top, back down the wooded side you can see on the far right image. The building that you can see in that top right-hand picture is a failed German brewery that was set up there and really didn't make a go of it. That's the far end of the lake. And there were quite a few birds in the marshy area at the bottom there. We were concentrating on them. And subconsciously we said, there's a flock of sheep in the field behind us. And then we looked round and saw the sheep with pretty long necks. And they're actually a field of domesticated alpacas with a single llama in amongst them. And I think the llama acts as a guard because we were told that the population of puma in the area was increasing. So some of the birds that we saw on the lake, could we put the other lights out? Is that better?
Just one. So, can you hear okay at the back?
Yeah, okay. If people can remember ruddy ducks that we used to have in the country, this is a close relative of them. This is a stiff tail. The male on the left, the female on the right. I think that might be the only pair we saw of these. Somebody mentioned pintail earlier on. This is a yellow-billed pintail. If you ignore the bill, the head and the appearance of that bird is classic pintail shape, except the bill is the wrong color. So can anyone remember what the color of a female pintail here is?
Right.
It's gray, dark gray. And the male and female of yellow-billed pintail look like that. There's no gaudy plumage in the male. Oops, wrong one. This was the commonest duck there. These are Andean teal. I'm notorious for ranting about taxonomy. This used to be called speckled teal, and it stretched from Colombia down into northern Argentina and Chile. The southern birds have got bright yellow bills. The northern birds have got dark grey bills. So the dark grey ones are now Andean teal, and the yellow-billed ones are yellow-billed teal. This was a bonus. No one was using tapes or anything, just in one little bit of marsh. This wandered out and stayed in full view for a good 5 minutes. Again, taxonomy, it's been described as a subspecies of Virginia rail. The Ecuador birders say that's rubbish. It's a completely different species. There's differences in the plumage. The Virginia rails migrate, these don't. So we're taking that as a new species of rail. Coots are coots wherever you go. Usually the only difference is the coloration on the cere there. Andean coot, it can be white, it can be cream, it can be yellow, or it can be red. They used to split them up depending on the colors. They've lumped them all back together again. And on this lake, we had white ones and yellow ones. Andean gull, the only gull you're going to see on the interior in Ecuador. There are lots on the coast, some really good ones on the coast, but up in the hills, that's the only one you're likely to see. And this one was coming into breeding plumage with a black hood, black bill, black legs. On our way back from the walk around the lake, our driver was still waiting at the car for us. And he said, "Look what's up there." And that was the only sword-billed hummingbird we saw on the trip. Now, how does it preen itself? How does it make a nest? How does it feed its young? Apparently it preens itself with its feet. It scratches itself, but how the rest of it works, I don't know. That's a female, by the way. The male is completely dark green with a bit of gloss on him. There was a flock of 4 brush finches. These are yellow-breasted. They used to be called rufous-naped. And there's a cline stretching from Colombia down into Peru. And some have got that little moustache stripe you can see on the right-hand bird, and some haven't. And some have the white spot on the wing, and others don't. But the basic geography is the same with all of them. Probably not the most exciting name, but these were in the marshy area at the far end. They're a small seed eater, female on the left, male on the right. Despite being plain colour, the male is quite attractive for a seed eater with his little pink bill. Almost if anyone goes to South America, you're going to have seen this species before. It's interesting, they're becoming rarer in Ecuador. We normally used to see them every day, almost every hour. But we probably saw no more than about half a dozen in a couple of weeks. Maybe we're in the wrong habitat. And this was the hotel that we were booked into for 3 nights. It was certainly a very flash and fancy one. Hosteria dos Chorreras means hotel of 2 waterfalls. There wasn't any waterfalls to see anywhere. The bedroom, bottom left, is actually where the bed is supported by heavy black chains. And when we were shown in there, we thought, God, this is an S&M dungeon or something. But it was actually quite comfortable, just very unusual bedroom decoration. The restaurant was served up some great food. If you're into ceviche, which is the raw fish cooked in lime juice. Stick to the Peru one, not the Ecuador. Top left is their attempt at it. And it's basically like a gazpacho soup with a little bit of fish floating about in it. The bottom steak and chips is what our driver and guide ate every night. The top right is us attempting the taste of loja, which is the state we were in, which is a bit of avocado, fried eggs, pork, and some maize balls. But the sweet was good. It was a chocolate mousse with raspberries. So it was quite upmarket for a birding trip. This is probably the first time in a bird talk to BOC there's been some attractive young ladies in it. When I'm going out in the field, I'm quite eccentric. I've got baggy trousers on and braces and an Australian hat. And we were going into the restaurant at breakfast one day and she came up and said, "Can I take your photograph?" And I said, "Yeah, but if I can take yours." So she took her phone out and went click. And I said, "Right." And I took hold of her. I took her against a decent background and tried to set her up and posed her. And this is me trying to improve my portrait photography. Not quite the first bird, but there are some more birds coming up. The bird on the left, Tony Rumpta Ranulet, was a lifer for us. We walked out of the hotel on day one. Bird flew across. Our guide said, "Tony Rumpta Ranulet," and it kept flying. Second day, exactly the same happened again. The third day, it came in and flew on the top of that tree. And that's the only one we saw. That's the only picture I've got of it. But you can see the buffy markings on the wing, the black cap. Unfortunately, we can't see the tawny rump on it. The white-tailed deer, I didn't know that it extended that far south into America, but it was just mooching around the back of the hotel, and I think they probably put some scraps out for it. This is working our way up. In the top left-hand picture, the buildings you can see there are the hotel and the associated little village it was in. We're starting to work our way up the pass and various stops that we took on the way up. The first one was just this clump of flowers at the side of the road. And I clicked off that rather boring little hummingbird there with a short bill, violet-headed, violet-throated metal tail. And it turns out it's one of the rarest birds we saw on the trip without realizing what it was. Next stop, a bit higher, not so much vegetation, open grassy areas, and you will hear ant pickers calling all over the place. Trying to see them is a different problem. And this one just sat up and posed beautifully for his portrait. This is another hummingbird that was in that area, blue mantled thornbill. The blue color is down its back. I think it needs the sun on it to actually bring it up. It was a fairly cloudy day when we were up here with them, but it just posed beautifully on the top of that twig. To get the iridescence on the throat marking is the reason the right-hand picture is on there. The rest of it is pretty drab as far as hummingbird plumage is concerned. Right. The top two birds are birds called Synclodes, rather. Their names describe their appearance there. Synclodes are part of a family called Furinids. And that is a family used in South America for putting all the odds and sods in. So there's stream creepers, foliage gleaners, firewood gatherers. Think of a job a bird could do, and there's a name for it. But the Synclodes are part of that family, and it's a big family, and I'll point out more members of it as we go on. The birds at the bottom are a high altitude finch, Columbia Sierra finch, the male plain grey, the female a bit streaky on the right. Further up still, and this is all just working our way up the valley, you come across this area of lakes. And it's very reminiscent of the Lake District in UK, apart from the llama sign at the side of the road. The area that we walked through was the bottom two pictures, particularly the right one, the line of trees along the edge of the lake. And there's a tree called polylepis, and it's a high altitude tree only found in the Andes. And there are one or two birds that are specialized in living in it. And this is the one that you always associated with that tree. It's strange that a bird that behaves like a nuthatch has evolved to have the colors of a nuthatch. And it's got the blue-gray back, it's got the chestnut belly and a bit of white on its head, and it climbs about in the bark, poking about for insects. The part of the tanager family. A couple of other birds there. On the left is a little tit tyrant. They go around in flocks of 3 or 4. The mountain tanager, you usually see it in a mixed flock in these high altitude areas. If there's any vegetation, you can get these mixed flocks comprising of flycatchers, tanagers, various other things. But this one was on its own and allowed us to get that picture of it. This is another taxonomic mess. We were in this area back in 1990 something. And at that time, this was called tit-like dackness. And then some people discovered some birds like this in Peru. The tit-like dackness in other parts of Ecuador hasn't got streaks. The streaky one in Peru is called streaked tit dackness, and they decided that this one across the border is more related to that bird than the plain blue one, so it's changed its name completely, but it's now called streaked tit dackness.
David, do you mind if we have a question?
Yeah.
Ian asks what does NT and earlier VU mean on the slide?
Sorry, VU is vulnerable and NT is near
Near
threatened. Yeah.
Thank you.
This is at the top of the pass, and this is our guide called Jorge, and he was great, spoke great English, really good at birds, just fly past and he would tell you what it was, and he was always proved right. If I've shown you Jorge, I've got to show our driver, who was Luis, and he was like, not using this as a derogatory term, like a little leprechaun. He was always laughing, he was happy, and he was a birder. So he would come out with you if the car was parked somewhere safe. If you wanted to watch the car, you could come back and he will point out something that he's seen or that was still around. The interesting thing was there was an election coming up in Ecuador, and Jorge and Luis were completely different parties. And they were sitting in the front 2 seats. And if you just wanted to get them going at each other, you just mentioned something topical and off they would go. Really, the only bird at the top of the pass there is getting this Ecuadorian hill star. And the bird on the left is a bit molting, but you can appreciate it's got a completely blue head with this purple gorget. The colors are difficult to explain because they're both the same bird, just different light and different backgrounds, different whatever. But keep that in mind when I come to another hill star a little bit later. Complete blue hood and a dark gorget. Next stop was a drive down to that town of Saraguro. There's some pictures coming up that might offend any vegetarians or vegans. This pig on a stick occurred almost in every town we drove through in southern Ecuador. They'll appear again later on in different states of dismemberment. But can you imagine sitting down at that table and chair and having a cup of coffee with a dead pig like that sitting behind you? But it was a lovely town to stay in. That's her hotel, just a small posada. There's a comfortable room, comfortable beds, a nice little porch out the front. And now that I've started photographing young ladies, I carried on. The girl on the left was the receptionist. Well, General Dog's body there, she was doing everything, but she was wearing the hat. And a lot of the Andean women wear various types of hats. So the fact she still had hers on was why I wanted her picture there. And the other girl was going into a meeting, and it was obvious she's dressed up in her traditional clothes, but just her fancy clothes. And again, she was delighted to have her picture taken. This is driving out of Saraguro. You can imagine in the old days, whenever they were, probably all this was forested. And you can see just the remnants of the forest at the tops of the mountains. They're cleared, there's cattle on there. The stalking rate is non-existent, but it gives you grassland, trees, and the forest at the top. You try to get into the forest as best you can, and there are various roads going off the main road up and getting into this sort of habitat. And what you're looking for is a flock of birds, which is where you've got a chance to pick up things that you wouldn't normally get. The bird on the left, the spine-tail, is a furinid. The warbler is an American warbler family. The spine-tails are a huge number of birds in the family, always grey, black, or chestnut, and usually chestnut on the wings, chestnut on the head, or the tail in varying amounts. Wrens, we've got one wren in this country. There's probably a dozen wrens in Ecuador. There's probably 20 plus 25 wrens in South America. And there's two very similar. There's this rufous wren, which you can see there. There's another one coming up quite quickly afterwards. It's just a little bit grayer and a slightly different bill. The one on the left is a flower piercer. They feed on pollen and nectar, but they go in at the base of the flower. So their bill is adapted to poke in through the flower at the base rather than the hummingbirds, which go in the front way. And we did get a mixed flock. These are a couple of tanagers that were in it. The one on the left, golden crowned, is a great color scheme for a bird. Royal blue, gold on the crown, and the black head and chest to show it off. The scarlet bellied mountain tanager, I cannot get a picture showing the scarlet belly anywhere. I've tried half a dozen times to do it. It's got a bright royal blue rump. It's got the red on the face, but you need the red belly to get the bird at its best. Now, remember the Ecuadorian hill star? This is the best picture I've got of this bird. Our driver rang the ranger here. This is a place called Cerro de Arcos. It's an hour away from where we were staying. And he rang up the ranger the night before and said, how are the roads? And the ranger said, fine, they're nice and dry. So we set off. We got up there and it had rained all night. It doesn't look steep in these pictures. But what happened, we tried to get our car up here and it wouldn't go up. We tried and tried. He said, sod it, we'll go back to the village, we'll hire borrow a truck from down there. So we drove back down, got hold of this truck, tried to get up, it got stuck exactly the same place. We were about 500 meters from where the bird was supposed to be. You can see what the weather's like there as well. It's all clouded and drizzling. So just as Nancy and I set off to walk, and these guys were trying to push it out of the ditch and get it parked where it was going on that bottom right picture, two young Ecuadorians drove up in a Toyota Land Cruiser and said, did we want a lift? And they took us straight up to where the bird was. So the guy on the left is the driver of the lorry. The village that have taken over the area where the hummingbird is found, and they're really proud of it. It was only described in 2018, so it's a fairly new species. But if you remember the first picture, the bib is just this bright blue color and the head is green. Oops, that's the clump of flowers it lives in. And our driver knew exactly which bush it would be in, but the weather was so rubbish, we couldn't get a decent picture of it. This was a more easily approached hummingbird, the shining sunbeam. Normally it glows in sunlight. It's pretty drab there. And that's our attempt at the blue-throated hill star, critically endangered because there's only that one little clump of flowers where the bird's known from. They reckon there are other clumps around that mountain, but no one's actually gone to find them. And apparently the area has all been divided up into areas for mining and looking for gold. So hopefully some of it can stay pristine. Next stop was the town of Loja, which is probably fourth or fifth town in Ecuador, so it's quite a big place. And we were heading for the municipal park. The architect of the park was probably on some magic mushrooms as well, because the architecture is a bit weird, but the kids were running around there and were loving it. But there were some good birds there. Oh, and I don't mean that one. As we got out of the car, about 100 yards up the road, and that's the pavement rather, around the park, there was a camera set up and a guy with a sound thing, and two heavy looking guys in suits and t-shirts, and a younger girl dressed as a cat. And they were obviously filming, and it was either a porno movie or an EastEnders type thing. I don't know what was going on, but I went up to try and find out, and she tried to explain to me, and I said, "Can I take your picture?" And she said yes. And you can see as soon as she's taken the pose on, she's an actress of some kind. Anyhow, I didn't get that link between birds. And so in the park, there was a little pond, striated heron, unfortunately hiding in the cover there. But that's the same heron species that you see in the southern states of America, the green heron, which is dark green and rufous, and that's the same species as that bird there. And I think that's got to be a split that comes out sometime. Golden olive woodpecker is a fairly widespread species in South America. In the park, there are two species of kingfisher, the big ring one on the right and the smaller green kingfisher. The green kingfisher is very similar to another one called the Amazon kingfisher, but the green has got white spots on the wing, and you can just see them on that bird on the left. Sorry. This was what we were looking for. Amazilia hummingbird is a widespread bird throughout the northern half of South America. The one in Loja has got this white breast and belly. The Amazilia hummingbird in the rest of South America has got a rufous belly. And again, the Ecuadorian birders are convinced this is another species. So anywhere in that area of Loja, it's always put as Loja hummingbird in brackets. Another furinid, horneros. Hornero means oven in Spanish. And these birds build these fairly major structures up in the trees, and they're extremely vocal as well. And the one on the left is obviously proclaiming his territory, and he's got an occupant in the one on the right. More birds in the park. The bird on the left doesn't look like a wren as we know it, completely different plumage, much longer tail, but there are 3 or 4 species of wren like that in South America. Great thrush is like a blackbird on steroids. Give it at least 25% bigger than the birds that we've got here. Male and female are that dark grey colour, and black phoebe is a very widespread flycatcher, usually seen near water. Bird on the left, blue-grey tanager, again, a very widespread bird in South America. Slight difference as you travel from west to east. But the one on the right got Jorge quite excited about. It's a mountain hepatic tanager. It's a female. It's the only one we saw on the trip. The male is a dark brick red color. And it used to be all lumped into one species called hepatic tanager. And that stretches from the States down into South America. But they've now split it into northern and southern and mountain, and there's 3 or 4 forms of hepatic tanager. More birds in the park. To get a grosbeak down in the ground is a wee bit unusual. They're normally high up in the trees, and that southern yellow was down and allowing us to get a picture of it. The golden rump euphonia, that was the only one we saw of that on the trip. And that's a tanager, but the euphonias are small, dumpy forms of tanager, but they're usually very brightly colored. And on that image, you can just see the golden rump on it as well. Right, further south to Vilcabamba. This was our first stop on that drive into a town. Oh, I forgot to put a label on it. I've forgotten its name now. And we stopped, and the top left picture, you can see the white building is the church. And the church is normally the site for one of the most beautiful swallows in South America, the chestnut-necked swallow. And there wasn't one to be seen. And eventually we worked out why. There was a very fat-looking bat falcon sitting on top of the steeple. This was going on in the square below. He wasn't concerned by that. Top left-hand picture, the girl in the blue jeans was the only person who wouldn't let me photograph her on that trip. Her hair was shiny, straight, black, and went right down to her beyond her bottom. And I could have got a great picture, but she said no, so I didn't push it. The guys there are making the equivalent of donuts, and we stopped and had a cup of coffee, and you get the donut, and they pour some cane syrup over it, and it's really tasty. This is on the outskirts of town. We stopped at a little field, and Jorge said, sometimes there's a plumbeous rail comes out of the reeds at the back there. And within a couple of minutes, dum, 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 out it came. No calls, no feeding, no nothing. And managed to grab a shot of it. The ear doves are quite common, usually in towns. And the long-tailed mockingbird is a garden type bird. So to get one singing on a post was a good chance to, or not a chance to give up on it. This was her hotel here. It's actually got a swimming pool. Did we actually go in? No. In the bottom picture showing the pool, there is a guy sitting in a jacuzzi at the back. I didn't notice that till I'd taken the picture. But again, just a comfortable bed, nice food. And all these places are quite happy to give you breakfasts at 5:30 in the morning as well, which is great and gets you out in the field quickly. This was the center of town in Vilcabamba. Not nearly as busy as that place we stopped on that had the market in the square. We stopped for lunch there, and just a bowl of soup, you can see, looks quite filling there, a slice of bread, that did us for lunch, and then an ice cream from the ice cream shop. That took us into the afternoon, and we took this walk out of the village, up the path through the grass, turned right towards the rubbish dump, as birders do, and managed to pick up some good birds up in that area. Pacific pygmy owls are usually very responsive even during the day if you give a little burst of their call, and one little blast and we got two that came up to see who was making the noise. The bottom one's a flycatcher. I don't know why they mean southern beardless taranulate. Okay, it hasn't got a beard. If it had a beard, then it would be bearded. It hasn't got a blue back, or it hasn't got yellow in the wing. The oriole is, like most orioles, black and yellow, just in different appearances of that. And saffron finches are the equivalent of house sparrows used to be here. They're very common in towns and gardens. So from there, we drove up into the hills again, looking for another road going into some vegetation and cover. You can see there's a lot more cover on the hills here, so there's better chance of getting some forest birds. This is a white-throated hawk. We were walking along the path, and this bird came along at eye level, and we all said it's a broad-winged hawk, and it went around the corner, but looked as if it was going to land. So we crept back a bit, and it's not at the nest or anything. That's just the shape of the tree it landed in. But it's got this very pronounced white throat, and there is a species called white-throated hawk, and Jorge was happy to confirm it as that. Other birds up here, crimson-mantled woodpecker, quite a spectacular one with the bright red back crown and the yellowish barred belly. Mouse-coloured thistle tail is another phorinid, completely different, like a Chetty's warbler with a long tail sticking out the back. They're skulkers, but a little bit play on the tape can usually get them to pop up, and you can get a picture of them. The rainbow-bearded thornbill. Thornbills have got these little bills. Unfortunately, that's in the middle of a cloud, and you can't really appreciate the rainbow beard, which is red, yellow, blue, and everything else. This got Jorge excited. It's a red-hooded tanager, obvious name to give it, but it's very rarely seen. And we saw this 3 times along that walk. It just kept following us almost. The male's on the left with the red coming a bit further down the chest. The female, the red's kind of restricted to the throat area. But they were very obliging and perched up for us really nicely. Next stop is our first birding lodge. Now, if you've been to a birding lodge, you know it's completely different. It's going to be fairly basic, but there will be feeders there, usually hummingbird feeders and fruit feeders, and then you've got a great chance to get some better pictures. So this is the one at Tapachulaca. That's the building. The bedrooms are on the top. We were the only people staying in it. And what was happening was there was a South American bird fair being held in Mindo the week after the weekend before we left Ecuador. All the tours, because at a bird fair, you get people coming in from all over the world, and they had organized trips. And I'm sure our agent had booked us into these places when no one else was there, because our route was a bit like a random arrow shooting out all over the place, but we never saw any other birder on the trip at all. So we had this place to ourselves. This was in the bar, restaurant, lounge area. And the poster on the right is where you identify, if you see a spectacled bear, and if you see a spectacled bear, you're bloody lucky. But they've all got individual markings, and you're supposed to identify which one it is. The one that intrigues me is the bottom left one, which is white. And I can just imagine walking along a track in the forest in Ecuador, and what appears to be a polar bear comes round the corner. But I never thought of having an albino spectacled bear. And the other thing is some wine is produced in Ecuador, and they've labeled it locally. So the bottle on the right has got the blue-throated hummingbird, and the one on the left, just wait a minute. Well, you've seen the picture already of it, but this was the little path I went out early one morning just on my own, and stepped out of the building, turned left, and you're into the forest, and just walking along there and see what you can find. Bearded guans are big, small turkey-sized game birds. It's nice to see them. They're usually an indicator of good habitat. That's going to have other birds in it. Masked trogon is a lovely bird. You can see it out in the open, which is unusual because they're normally hiding behind leaves. So that was a bonus. And the undulated antpitta is one that hasn't got used to being fed, and I'll talk more about that after the break. But the books say it will always just hop along the path in front of you. And I spent half an hour almost getting up to it, and it pop, 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 and off it went. But I managed to grab that one picture of it. But round the lodge, there was a chance to get some pictures of hummingbirds. And you've always got to try and get the light right so that you can see the iridescence on the plumage of the feature. So that particularly the one in the bottom right, although it's not an ideal portrait picture, it shows the amethyst throat. Again, chestnut-breasted coronet. The chestnut breast is the feature of it, so there's no need to get iridescence there. But the one on the left, the flame-throated, in one light, it looks a very pale orange. It just needs to turn its head and it turns into that much darker orange as well. And the green iridescence underneath the orange on the bottom left bird doesn't, or just shows a tiny little bit on the upper bird on the left. Some more hummingbirds that were there. It couldn't be called anything else except long-tailed silk, could it? And the speckled hummingbirds on the right, the male is the right bird, which is a little bit darker in the plumage, and the female is the paler one. Flycatchers can be a real problem, but some are fairly distinctive. The rufous-crowned toddy, very distinctive head pattern, that's unique. The one bottom left, rufous-breasted chat tyrant, it's not a very good picture. It's the only one we've got, but you can see the rufous breast, and they've got a big white supercilium. The white banded at the top is they've got two really thick white wing bars and the really white, wide supercilium as well. But it's great to have a guide to tell you what these flycatchers are. This was another very similar wren to the rufous one we had earlier on. And it doesn't quite show the different shape in the head and the bill because it's got that insect in its beak, but that is a very similar species to the last one. And that's 8:30, and that's me halfway through. How's that for timing?
Excellent. There you go. Very professional. Thank you very much, David. That was wonderful. Brilliant photos. I'm looking forward to the rest of them. I'm just now making me very nostalgic for being in Ecuador. Right, we'll have a 10-minute break. There you are. Apologies.
Okay. Those who know Mindo, which is a small village, well, probably not a small village now, northwest of Quito. And in the early 1980s, there was a potato farmer growing his potatoes in his field. And he noticed there was this bird came out from the forest and started feeding on the worms that he was digging up with his potatoes. And he knew there were some bird watchers down in the village. And he went down and saw them. And they said, no, you won't get birds coming out to eat worms. And they went up to see it, and it was a giant ant picker. And this guy was called Angle Paz. And he thought, if the bird watchers want to see that bird and I can feed them with worms and bring them out, then I can maybe charge them $5 to come up and see it. He is now the richest man in Mindo. He can produce in his area of forest 3 or 4 ant pitters, a wood quail, a tapaculo, and he's charging $60 a morning, whether you see anything or not. And he's the richest man in the village. And that technique, other guys have picked up on it. Nothing's happening.
Isn't it on again? No. There we go. If he doesn't go again,
Right,
like that,
okay.
but he should
That
do it
one,
on the
okay.
arrows now. No, it's got, now we've got it shifted. It should do it.
Right, bottom left is a guy called Franco. And in his hand, he's got the worms. And you come out the lodge, you walk along the road a bit, then you take a path up into the forest, about 500 yards. They've got a bench, and they've got like a small bus shelter in clear in clear perspex that you can sit underneath in case it's raining. He goes up to this little clearing that he's made and goes, Paulina, 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 and steps back. The bird on the right was seen on walking up to there, and that's a barred-bellied woodpecker, but that's incidental. And it's pure theatre. It comes out and it will pose there, allows you to take a picture. It'll go back into the forest. Franco will come out and rearrange the stage so that it's now got a log to stick the perch on. Paulina, Paulina, rattles the, and out it comes again. And it's a great way to see a bird, and it's getting fed. The problem is other birds have cracked it as well.
Oh.
And it actually got photobombed because the first time he called Paulina, this little chestnut ant picker came out from behind us and bobbed across and started eating all the worms. So we had to wait till he had taken his fill, and then Paulina appeared again. He put some worms up on that bracket fungus on the tree, and that barred fruit eater came in and was taking the worms there as well. This is coming out of the lodge onto the main road. You can see how busy it is with traffic. There's not much happening at all. And you can walk along the road and bird on the forest, which is level. You're seeing into the canopy, basically. So there were some good birds to see there. This is another rant coming on. Golden plume parakeet. What does a macaw look like? It's got a big bill, it's got bare face skin, it's got a flat head like that, and it's got a long pointy tail. And to me, that looks like a macaw, behaves like a macaw, and it doesn't behave like a parakeet. But that's my rant. To me, it's a mini macaw. The toucanet on the right, again, used to be one species of Andean toucanet. And then they started splitting them all the way down, depending on the bill color, whether they've got a little blue patch under the throat or not. So that's now called black-billed toucanet here. The bird top left is a rather boring flycatcher. It's a short, stocky bird lives in low bushes, flies up, gets it, does what a flycatcher does. The one on the right, the fruit eaters are always a wee bit special, and to see that second species after the barred one yesterday was a bonus. The bottom one is a real special one. And that's the first time I've seen it in all the times I've been in South America. It's always a bird that groups try to see and very rarely do. And by walking along the road, we got a group of 6 of them flying along and calling and perching in the bushes, just overlooking where we were looking down. This is the next village on the way down, a little bit of a one-horse town. There's not much going on there, but they know the bird watchers are keen on the place, and they've got their Joko Toko ant pitter about 15 foot high in the square, and that's all that's left of their today's pig by the time we got there. The path we were on was just outside town and walked down to a river bridge, and that was where we started getting some fairly good birds again. All right, this was in the little garage that was there in the garage forecourt, and all 3 birds were there. So the big one on the left is the grey-breasted martin, a much bigger bird than the ones on the right. Blue and white swallow is exactly like our house martin, apart from a white, it hasn't got the white rump. And the white banded is completely black with that simple or single white belly band rather than a breast band on it. Some more birds that were around there, white-eyed parakeets. They're always difficult to identify. Okay, they've got the white eye ring, but they've got a variable amount of red on the head and breast. So you can see there in that 2 birds, the top one's just got a little drop of red. The bottom one looks like somebody's cut its throat, but there's a lot of red on that one. It's not a male-female thing, as far as I know. Long-billed starthroat, usually you find in arable areas, farmed areas, wide open vegetation, but it's got such a long bill and that little black spot underneath the bill, it's distinctive, even in dodgy light, like that one is. The little piculet, they're great little woodpeckers, tiny wee thing, well, like lesser spotted woodpeckers here. But it's great to see them, and the quite distinctive one on the right there, the yellow tufted, with the head pattern. Bird on the left is brown and boring, so it's a furinid. That's another group. There are 2 or 3 of the thorn birds there. And the one on the right is quite a common widespread flycatcher, yellow-bellied Elenia. One on the left is another picture of that fasciated wren that we saw in the park at Loca. The bird on the left is a Marignon thrush, which is actually a species that's centered in northern Peru, where there's this Marignon Valley that's got several endemics in it. But this bird just creeps over the border into Ecuador, and it's got the brown back, but the black barring all on the underparts there. Tanagers are always worth a look, and I tend to take pictures of them. Silver beaked on the left, most of the time it looks black, but there is a red flush to it that comes up sometimes if you get the light right, and it's just showing on the neck on the bird on the left. Paradise tanager on the right, green, blues, bright red rump when it flies, and that royal blue you can just see in the wing there as well. It's a beautiful, great color scheme. Whoever designs them. Yellow-browed sparrow is a grassland bird. This is roadworks at a bridge with concrete and metal everywhere, but it's sitting there and showing well for a picture. Red-crested finch, top right, that has got a crest that comes up like a hoopoo when it's excited or when it's agitated. These are some garden supports that was in the town. And the saltator on the left, these are big, stocky seed eaters. And street says when it is gone on the belly just this week in here. Driving on to our next spot, we stopped off at a university botanic garden. And I spent ages trying to work out what Rinaldo Espinosa is. Jardin Botanico is botanic garden, obviously. Rinaldo is basically someone's name. So I suspect by the look of it, it's an orchid or something that is called a spiny Rinaldo. But there are a couple of birds that we wanted to see here. The rainbow star frontlet, again, it says on the label, you've got this beautiful iridescence just above the bill on the forehead. And depending on the light, it's red, yellow, green, blue. And it's unusual to get a rich rufous hummingbird as well. Silverback tanager, unfortunately that picture doesn't show the silverback, but the main feature is that big chestnut patch on the cheek. But another striking tanager. Last pig, I think. The problem was the shops were called picanterias. And the first few we saw, we thought, okay, that's where they're selling chilies, or it's going to be red, hot, and spicy. But we actually stopped and we bought a carry out from that pot there, and it's the best roast pork I have ever tasted. So if you're there and you get a chance to try it, don't be put off by the surrounds because they're scalding hot, they're cooked there in front of you. This is to the left of the river here. There's an old disused road now called the Loca Zamora Road. And when we were here last, we birded that road and it's now virtually impassable. And the new road goes down this right side of the river, but you could get down to a bridge. And when we were down there looking at what was on the river, this guy came past on his horse, and his mule rather, and was really friendly and was chatting away to the guides and everything. And I said, can I take your picture? And he gave us a wave and off he went. The packs the mules carry are probably full of drugs. He's a farmer coming off the mountains in Ecuador with something to sell. I don't know, but he was quite friendly and chatty. Down at the river, just looking over and looking down, we got the white cap dipper. And in a bush there was a slaty cap flycatcher just asking to be photographed. But the other thing that was screaming out to be photographed was this family of torrent ducks. And I decided not to zoom in on them, but to let you see the habitat. And I spent ages waiting for all three of them to be facing left. And there's only one duckling left, which is highly surprising if you go in for a spring in there. But I think they nest in the river banks. They produce 6 to 8 eggs, 6 to 8 young, but they've only got one left. Yeah, the male is the one on the right, and the female with the chestnut. But I think that catches the torrent ducks live in. Where are we off to now? Copalinga. Another birding lodge. Same sort of setup, wooden cabins, simple restaurant, bar at the back there, and they could always come up with a cold beer or a margarita. It was raining a little bit here, but not too bad. Oops, I've gone the wrong way. This is where we lost Louise. He said he'd got to get back up to Quito. There was something happening. His wife was getting involved in some legal setup and he had to go back and help her and support her. So they sent this other guy down called Antonio, who was the guy on the left, who was a real smoothie, Nice guy, good driver, not interested in birds at all. Thought we're all crazy, but for the last 5-7 days, he was great. The guy on the right, I forgot to get his name, but we call him Mr. Tinamou, because he could do what Angle Paz did with his handpicker, he could do with tinamous. And tinamous are big game birds, were very, very vocal, but real sods to try and see. Top hand bird is a great tinamou. The plan is you walk up this path at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and he's got a blind there with a gap that you look through. And we stood there for 20 minutes looking through the blind, nothing to see. Turned round to go back, and there's 3 tinamous pecking about in the path behind us. So that's where the picture of the grey tinamou comes from. The other two, the speckled chalaka, again, is a quite nicely marked for chachalaka. A lot of them are just plain brown. And the sickle-winged guan, again, if you can get a guan coming down to feeders, it's a great chance to photograph them because you'll never see them when they're up in the trees in the canopy. Hummingbirds and feeders. Nancy is a much better flying bird photographer than I am. So anything that's flying is probably down to her. So that green hermit. There's great debate when we show it to some of our birding friends whether we should leave that red flower in or not. But the consensus is that's what they feed on, so might as well leave it in. And when people name hummingbirds, they basically describe them. So the one on the left, golden-tailed sapphire, it's got the golden tail, it's got a blue head. Violet-headed hummingbird on the right has got the violet head. And there's a great selection of hummingbirds. And the trick is, or as far as I'm concerned, not to get them at feeders. Photographically, the feeders are plastic, they're white, they're pink. And if there's any white on the bird, the pink reflects on it. And I'd much rather just wait and get them sitting quietly at the side. Wood creepers, there's nothing like that in Europe. They're a cross between a woodpecker and a tree creeper. And there's a whole range of bill sizes. The one on the right is the smallest bill, that's the wedge-billed wood creeper. This one called strong-billed. In the scale of things, that's not a particularly big bill. Some of them, particularly things called side bills, have got enormous great beaks that come out in a semicircle almost. I would never have guessed that bird on the left was the Ecuadorian tyrannulet, but Jorge was convinced it was singing. I don't know what it's doing with its tail. I presume it was vibrating at some point, but there's his identification gives me that bird. The one on the right, ornate flycatcher, much more easy to identify. That big white spot is quite obvious, and the yellow belly makes it quite distinctive. Some closer looks at some euphonias. Again, I said they're a smaller mini tanager. This is a pair. The females are usually green, sometimes have a little bit of grey flush around the neck or around their breast there. There were 2 here. This is a thick-billed euphonia, which has got the yellow coming right up to its chin, as opposed to the very similar orange-bellied euphonia, which has got a black chin. And there's just a suspicion of some orange on that belly, but I've never seen bright orange on a euphonia, orange-bellied euphonia. They're just very similar, the blue and the yellow. Another rant. Green honey creeper. The bird on the right is green, and that's a honey creeper, but it's the female. And the male is the bird on the left, which is blue and black. But it's called green honey creeper male. Some more tanagers, green and gold, nicely patterned there. I mentioned the blue and grey tanager early on when we were in the park in Loca. As you come further east, there's white markings start to appear on the wing, and you can see there's like a little white wing bar on that left bird. And the white line tanager, the white is under the wing, so you only really see it when it flies, but there's just a trace of it showing through under the wing there. Another rant. There's a bird called palm tanager. This is the bird in Ecuador, which is grey and yellow with the black marking, the black primaries, a little black wedge of the secondaries. The bird is found all the way across to eastern Brazil. The birds in eastern Brazil are completely olive green, but with the identical black markings. And they're so different to look at them, but they're called palm tanagers, although people are now starting to call them olive palm tanagers. So there may be something coming on with that. The golden tanager is probably one of the brightest and most spectacular. I could not get it away from the feeder. So unfortunately, it's sitting on a banana. Another gorgeous one is this swallow tanager. We always seem to see them late in the afternoon, and they're always solitary, and they're always sitting out on a bare branch somewhere. So this one was got, I think, on our last afternoon there. It looks, there's two things going on here. There's these viewers and this viewer. That's a bird that looks much better on the around the side walls. I'm not going to tell everybody to start looking around. There's only one jay in the area there. This is it. It's green back and bright yellow belly, and the blue on the face usually go around in groups of 2 or 3. The orange-billed sparrow was photographed where the 3 tinamous should have been. So it's pecking at the corn that was put out for the tinamous. And the buff-throated saltator is a member of the streak saltator you saw earlier, but this is a much more common one, and it looks quite heavy and wicked, and it's got an odd aura around it. And a couple of the big oropendulas. The one on the left is called crested, and the crest is effectively almost a hair. You can barely see it. In fact, you can't see it on that one. And the russet-backed oropendula is, again, what it says on the packet. Oropendulas are the birds that make their globe-shaped nests at the end of branches, usually in palm trees. And they've got this wonderful calls that are really evocative when they're around their nesting area. And if you're going to put out corn for the birds, if it's not rats that come, then it's the equivalent of a rat. And this is a black agouti. Agoutis are about the size of a small dog, and they're rodents. So they come out and will tidy up any spare corn that's around. This was another twitch we set off on. Jorge knew this, there was a bird that was appearing regularly in a farmer's little field about an hour's drive away. And we set off to get to it, but we got distracted by this marsh that we stopped at. And there were quite a few birds picking around there. There was a line of three or four small houses, and behind the house there was this bare tree coming up, and at the top of the tree was that blue-headed parrot. And we stopped and photographed it, and then I thought, oh, this isn't right, this has got to be somebody's pet bird. And as we were doing that, the guy came out of the house, and we said, is that your pet bird. He says, no, no, it just comes in there and sits there sometimes. So that is a wild blue-headed parrot. The smooth-billed annies are easy in Ecuador. There's two very similar birds in Latin America. There's a groove-billed annie, and it's virtually impossible to tell them apart as far as I'm concerned. But smooth-billed is the only one here, so it makes it easier. Top right-hand corner, does that look like a wren to you? Say no.
No, it doesn't.
It's nothing like a wren, but that's a member of the wren family. And they're always in pairs, always in marshes, always highly vocal. And if you just play a little bit of tape, they will come up and pose beautifully for you. And they're big, about the size of blackbirds as well. A couple more birds in the trees. On the left, yellow-bellied Daphnis, again a member of the tanager family, but a subdivision of it. And another jay there, this time a violaceous jay. Little black seed eaters in the marsh, blue-black grassclit, common as house sparrows. Well, I shouldn't say that now, common as robins, but still a nice bird to see posing out. The lesser seed finch, very similar, apart from a bill that's almost twice the size and that chestnut belly. And the bottom one, the black-billed seed finch, is getting rarer and rarer. It's completely black, big, heavy, grosbeak-like bill, and probably getting onto the almost vulnerable stage, but always around marshy areas. And this is the little finca that we arrived at. The guy on the right, he was quite a happy chappy, and he did smile and chat away, but he doesn't look too happy there about things. But in the trees where Jorge's got his scope set up was this bird. And it's the only one we saw on the trip. It was high up in the tree, and with a bit of judicious cropping on all the images we were taking, we managed to get that decent portrait of it. And Nancy managed to get it with its tail fanned out, which shows it how even more spectacular it can be. We didn't see the female, didn't see anything else. There wasn't any feeder there. It just sat in that tree, but it was worth the journey to go and see it. Getting towards the end now, this was the last lodge that we were aiming for. Podocarpus National Park is almost contiguous with the alpacas, so there's quite a big area of protected forest there. At the side of the road on a telegraph pole, roadside hawk. They used to be very common. You would see them almost every day. I think we saw that one and one other one. Laughing falcon, you very often hear more than you can actually see it, but its call is like a kookaburra. It sounds like somebody having a laugh. And this was a fluke. Normally, if you want to see Andean cock of the rock, they lek, usually by a river, and usually the guides know where the lek is and will take you there. And if you hear, sorry, I'm coming back to pigs again. If you imagine a pig slaughterhouse, that's what it sounds like. It's a horrible call, but to get the bird that looks like that is great. But this one we just found at the side of the road,
Yeah.
and sat there for us, posed beautifully. Right, last lodge we're heading for, and its name gives it away, Umbrella Bird Lodge. Very similar design to everywhere else. I'm not sure these signs work. They've cut out silhouettes of the birds, and it's difficult to identify exactly what the shape is. But standard dining hall, dining area. It was getting a wee bit, oh no, we have the rooms first. Instead of in that one building, there were cabins around, and that was for a couple, that whole cabin there. So there was plenty of room. There was a table, there was a desk, there was Wi-Fi. It was very comfortable. Meals were getting a bit basic by this time. Bottom right is breakfast, which is ham, eggs, and maize fritters. Top left is dinner, rice, beans, and usually a completely desiccated lump of pork. But any leftovers, these would come out in the afternoon. There was about a gang of about 8 of them, and unlike the one on the left, and we thought that was what South American coatamundis look like. There was females and smaller ones, which were obviously juveniles. And then this big muscular red brute came out, and he's about twice the size of everyone else, and that's the alpha male of the group. So it's very different looking animals, but all the same species. That was taken from the dining room. There's a tree in the middle of the clearing outside, and the guy said this black and white owl comes in every evening about 7 o'clock, and we just sat there, put a torch on it, and took his picture. But it's a big, big owl. And some more hummingbirds here. Many spotted hummingbird has got that appearance of spots on its breast. The problem I've got is the female white-necked Jacobin has also got spots on its breast, and quite heavily spotted as well. But I have it on good authority from a current president of the club, Andy Swash, who's written books on hummingbirds, that is the many spotted hummingbird and the male white-necked Jacobin on the right. Again, male and female, male on the left, female on the right. That rufous on the face is quite distinctive, but they've both got the wee white patch behind the eye. The green fronted, I'm not getting the iridescence that should show on it if the sun was on it though. But again, photographed away from the feeders. This is one that we did get the iridescence on, and it's a beauty when the light catches it. The green and the blue is quite striking. Green thorntail, the male on the right with the long tapering tail streamers, the female, completely different looking animal, white, black on the face. They've got the white rump, but that's about the only thing they've got between them. But that's the female on the left, male on the right. Probably one of my favorite ones, the velvet purple coronet, the velvety black on its head and breast is really striking when the iridescence comes on its belly and its wings and on its back. And the fawn breast is brilliant. Again, could look a little bit drab, but if the light catches it right, there's a big glowing iridescent patch just at the junction between its throat and its breast that doesn't show on that picture, unfortunately. Still more hummingbirds. Andean emerald, completely white underneath, with the blue iridescence on its temples and forehead. Violet bellied, the violets on its belly. But if you get them sitting and you get them in good light, you can just sit and go through your book books. These are all photographed from the veranda around the lodge where the hummingbird feeders are set up. We saw surprisingly few antbirds on our trip, and I think this is the only 2 that we managed to get pictures of. And they were coming through the bushes in front of our cabin. Male on the left and female on the right. 1 or 2 more tanagers coming. Lemon rumped. I thought that was a nice branch it was perched on. And it looks quite nice showing its rump. common tawny flycatchers. They're common right throughout most of Central and South, the north half of South America. Some more bay-headed. It's not as attractive as you would, if you were to say it's got a brown head and a green back and a blue belly. I think it works quite nice there. I like the look of these ones, whereas they're rather tarty, blue neck on the other side is all blue and spangles and whatever. Gonna have to get on a wee bit here. This is the walk to get to the lek of the umbrella birds. We were walking up this track towards some steps that went down to the right. And the guides always say, walk on the road, don't go into the grass, because there are some snakes in there, and not very nice snakes. And we stuck to the road, we got to the bend there, and there was a couple coming behind us, and we chatted to them, and they said a fer-de-lance shot across the road after you got past it. So they were there. This was taken going along the road to where the umbrella birds were. A different chachalaca again. This one's much rarer, and it didn't come down to the feeders or anything. It was up in the tree, just being a chachalaca. Chestnut mandible toucan, that's the only big toucan that we saw there. There are a couple of others, but that's the only one I managed to get a photograph. And there's a terrible picture of a krogan at the bottom there. Vultures every day in big numbers, and they're just in for a filler. Bird on the right, tropical kingbird, one of the commonest flycatchers you can see in South America. The one on the left is very, very similar, but the throat is white compared to very pale grey. The tropical kingbird has got this kind of olive breastband, whereas the snowy-throated hasn't, and the snowy-throated hasn't got the black lobes. So to get two of them virtually in the same branch was a good chance to compare them. Oh, another couple of very nice flycatchers. Yellow, eyebrow, everything else is yellow on it. And a nice little sooty-headed taranulate there. There was two of them at eye level, just at the side of the road, performing very nicely. This was almost a bird of the trip. It's called Acracius attila. You look through the field guides, it looks brown. We walked up the road, there were two of them appeared at the side of the road, and they glowed golden, just when the light got them, and they were just beautiful. And for them to sit there and let me take the pictures was just great. But in life, they look so much better than the bird in the book. Another little warbler that you can get in the low down in the scrub. Great and gold, but it's nicely marked. It's got a black head crest. The cards, very characteristic shape. They're flycatchers, thick, stocky, big, heavy bill. One coloured means it's black all over. Charge. This was the path down to where the long-wattled umbrella birds lek. I think we were there in the afternoon, and the light to photograph them was terrible. They make this kind of mooing noise. They bring this crest up over the top of their head, and they inflate that great long wattle, which comes up and becomes horizontal almost, and then goes down. But could I get a picture? Well, I've got pictures of them with it up like that, but they're silhouettes and not very satisfactory. But at least there were at least two birds there showing. This was a quick chase to get one more tanager. I'm going to dash through this last wee bit. That's an Ecuadorian thrush. It was to get this bottom right tanager. There's beryl spangled. We've seen lots of places. It's quite common, but I've never got as good a picture as that, showing the black face and the glittering turquoise spots all over its body. But the black chin mountain tanager was the rare one that we wanted to see. And it came into that bush just in front of us and let us take that picture. That's one of the mountain tanagers. Yeah, it's that. Porto Jefe on the coast. We're on the last leg. We're getting up to Guayaquil. I'm going to charge through this. There's a little bit of marsh there. Lots of water birds. The bird we want to see is there's a black dot on the left-hand picture, but I can't show you it. It's to get a picture of this horned screamer, which is the bird at the bottom there. There were wood storks, there were ducks, there were roseate spoonbills, lots of herons, but that's the bird we wanted to see. And its horn, again, is just a very small tuft of feather that comes out and bends over the top of its head. And it's actually closely related to ducks. That's Porto Jefe. That's a dodgy looking yellow crowned night heron. It just looks dirty and look different. That's why I took its picture. We're into Guayaquil. That's our last night. Fancy hotel in the middle of town. We took a walk out to see the church and came back. And that was our last night in Guayaquil. I said at the start, the flight from Madrid to Quito flies on from Quito to Guayaquil. So to get back to Madrid, you get on the plane at Guayaquil and takes you to Madrid. This was our waitress in the bar, and the hotel had gone crazy for Halloween. It was about a week before Halloween. There were skeletons in reception. There were God knows what else. And all the waiters and waitresses were dressed like this. She let me take her picture, and that means thank you and safe journey home.
Oh, lovely. Thank you. Brilliant. Thank you so much, David. Wonderful. That was absolutely wonderful, David. And I should also say thank you to Nancy for your photos as well. Oh, for the photos.
Definitely.
Sounds like if you were getting the flight ones, well done. Right, I really enjoyed that. I'm going to have to go back now, aren't I? I keep saying this about places when
There's
we've had
always
a talk.
somewhere new.
There's so many places to go to. Have we got any questions for David?
David, what was your bird list?
How many birds?
About 350,
In what period of time?
2.5 weeks.
Blimey.
It's got a bird list of about 1,700.
Only scratched the surface then, really.
Well, our bird list is about 900 and something from Ecuador.
You've got 350, that's
Pretty good. Very good. Because some of it's quite difficult birding as well, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
You know, you're not,
But
they
that's,
don't all
I
come
mean,
out.
I hate now going down into the Amazon because it's wet,
Yeah.
it's sticky, it's sweaty, and it's, no, don't
No.
like it. Much happier in the temperate stuff.
Yeah. Any more questions? What other questions we got? Anybody on Zoom got a question? No?
Not yet.
Did you say that you mentioned an agent? So did you get somebody to put that all together for
Yeah,
you?
and there's
Yeah.
a company called Neblina Forest.
Oh
And,
yes, I've heard of it.
yeah.
Yes, yeah.
and we've used them all the time in Ecuador. And they've given us really good guides, good drivers. We know the guy, he comes to Bird Fair every year. We have a chat.
Yeah.
And Ecuador has got the tourist infrastructure. Its currency is US dollars, which makes it easy to know roughly how much things are costing. And the people are really nice. A lot of people are put off going to South America, but they're very, particularly in the country, they're very friendly and approachable. Yeah. And a little bit of Spanish helps, but I stress a very little bit I can do.
We have a question now. What camera do you use?
That was a new camera on its first outing. And I used to have a Canon, and I've now transferred to the OM1 system. And it's a whole new ballgame. So we want to go back everywhere and photograph everything again.
Do you have another trip planned soon?
We're off to Vietnam 2 weeks on Monday.
Excellent. That's what I like to hear.
Debbie's coming as well.
Right. Good. Any other questions?
Quick follow-up on that OM1, you really do surprise me with that answer. I mean, I've got a very old OM1 gathering dust and cobwebs stuck away in the corner. Do you mean the bayonet mounted?
No, it's the new one that's come out in the past 18 months, 2 years.
Okay.
It's a whole new system.
So my old lenses won't fit on it. I've got an adapter actually.
Whether that would work or not, I don't know. But there's so much of a computer in the camera now. I mean, setting up the settings is a 2-day exercise. And then you look on the YouTube and there's someone is doing it completely different and you change it. And you just go to do it to judge the results. But it's got bird recognition. So when you point the camera at the bird, there's a little square comes up and finds the bird. And then it's got eye recognition. So it focuses on the eye. And all you do is press the shutter.
My old mechanical flip lens OM1.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, you can still fiddle the plus and minus and overexpose and underexpose. Yeah.
Yeah, this is just to explain everybody on Zoom if they can't hear the questions. It's just about the old OM version system versus the new. Is that right?
Yeah, there must be an old system, and there must be an old system of OM1 because because Andy Swash got it a couple of years ago and raved about it, and we're fairly close with Andy. And Debbie changed to it, and she started getting great pictures, and we've changed to it now as well, and we're completely happy with it. Yeah.
Well, there you are. You should be on a commission from them.
And it's light as well.
Oh, really?
To take up a big camera and
You
lens.
should definitely be
it's
on a
light.
commission if you're
Yeah.
plugging it like that. Right. Any other questions? Yes, Rob.
Was it hard to find unspoilt rainforest? Parts of South America I've been to, wherever there's a road, the forests have been cut down.
This is just to repeat the question. Just was it difficult to find unspoilt rainforest?
Technically, I don't think we were in rainforest anywhere. We were in elfin forest, moss forest, temperate forest more than rainforest. Yeah, there's such a variety of habitats depending on altitude and where you're going. And most of the area west of the Andes in southern Ecuador is now given over to bananas. It's been cleared, and it's the biggest producer of bananas in the world now, is Ecuador. Any other questions? No, well, I shall wrap it up now then. Thank you very much indeed, David and Nancy. It was an absolutely brilliant talk of wonderful photos. Thank you. Okay.